So I originally went to school to be a journalist. I thought that being a journalist would be a great way to be a public service, holding people in powerful positions accountable. So I majored in journalism, and I really enjoyed it. But it was a good friend of mine who went to law school, and he became a prosecutor. I was talking to him about his job, and actually, when I was in law school, he was the one who got me an internship at the prosecutor's office in St. Louis. And that's the first time I started working in a prosecutor's office, and immediately fell in love with the work. So I think that kind of that public service I was looking for in journalism, I found a ton of in the prosecutor's office in St. Louis, and was very, very fortunate, very happy to have wound up here in Ohio working at the Summit County Prosecutor's Office. To me, the best part of being a prosecutor, and it's also one of the big reasons I became a prosecutor, is to be there for someone at one of the worst points in their life. If you have reason to talk to somebody because you're prosecuting a case and they're a victim of a crime, it's going to be because they've just been through something that's been really rough. It could be a minor crime, it could be a very serious crime, but even the smallest crimes carry pretty far consequences for victims. Even having a car broken into, while lower on the felony level, still feels like you've been violated. So you deal with people who are going through a tough time. And I like to be there for people when they're going through a tough time, to make sure that they get treated with the respect they deserve, to make sure they're a part of the process. And they can hopefully walk away from the process feeling a little bit better about how they were treated. The most difficult part of being a prosecutor is kind of going back to dealing with victims and working with victims, is that even on your best days, even on the cases that you're most happy with the result, a lot of times there's not always winners in our cases. You have someone who's been a victim of a crime, and you can be pleased with the result of a case, with a conviction, with a sentence, and you know that the victim may be pleased as well. But they're still going to walk away with scars from the process, from being victimized. So I think the hardest part is always realizing that you want to do the best that you can. You want to bring as much closure for the victim as possible, but still knowing that they're not going to be able to walk away completely satisfied or completely happy, because a lot of times what happened to them is something they're going to carry for the rest of their lives. I had a case, it was about a year and a half ago. It was a case I took over from another prosecutor when I transferred into a courtroom. And it was a case where the victim was a young girl. She was 13 when it happened, and she was 14 when I finally met her, had a chance to sit down with her. We sat down with her, sat down with a lot of members from her team. She had a counselor there, a caseworker, guardian ad litem, people like that. And she was a very dynamic young woman. But you could tell that she was very broken from everything that happened to her, because it was a sexual assault case. It was a very serious case. And I was talking with her, and I was just trying to go through the process of a case, the timeline of a case, what happens when, how things unfold. And it's a speech I've given hundreds of times. I hadn't really thought twice about it. And I'm kind of going through, and I say, if we go this far in a case, there could be a point where we have a sentencing, and at that point the court likes to hear from a victim, so if you'd like to be heard. And I did not get much farther in calling her a victim, and she interrupted me, and she goes, no, I'm a survivor. And that stuck with me. So it was a few months later, that the case had gone along, and there had been a guilty plea in the case, so we're proceeding to sentencing. And she shows up to court. She's got her same team with her that we met with before, counselor, etc. And I go through the process. I call the case. I tell the judge why we're here, and we're here for sentencing after a plea. And I make sure to tell the judge, I say, Your Honor, the survivor is here, and she would like to be heard. And I could tell in that moment how much it meant to her, and I could also see the looks on the faces of everybody with her team, knowing how much that meant to her. And a lot of them came up to me afterwards and said how thankful they were that I made that little detail just for her, to make sure that I called her a survivor. And it's humbling to know that the one word you chose makes that much of a difference. It's humbling to know each word we say has that much of an impact. but it's also a great responsibility. And that has always stuck with me as the most impactful moment, to make sure that at every point in time, we're choosing that best word. We're making sure that we're doing the best that we can to make a victim feel empowered in a case. So that's the one that's always stuck with me the most. I think the biggest misconception for prosecutors is that the job is easy. I think there's a conception, like it is on TV, and we have boundless resources, and everything is kind of presented to us, and everything is a slam dunk or easy, and that's just not the case. We have a very difficult job. We meet with witnesses, we meet with victims, we're going out to crime scenes, we're taking pictures, we're following up on our own cases, we're out in the field a lot. And it's not just a matter of having a case, calling a couple witnesses, and calling it a day. The people I work with, the people I'm so proud to work with, we take our job very seriously. And it's not just about cases and convictions. It's our job to get justice. And it's not easy to work your case to the fullest extent, to make sure that you've tracked everything down that you can, to make sure that the case that you're presenting is exactly right. It's difficult, but that's why I do it. But I would say the biggest misconception is that it's an easy job.